Welcome to the Stay Focused podcast,
where we explore the highs and lows and everything in between of your favorite business owners.
We're here because your story matters, so stay focused.
I wanted to know if I had the guts to be an entrepreneur. This person cares. This is their craft. They spent a decade doing it. The fact that it's reached the points it has without any advertising dollars either, the content itself is what people are wanting. And so people appreciate it and it resonates.
Hey, Stay Focused listeners.
Welcome back. We are so excited today to talk to Taylor McAlpine from Local LBK.
So insightful. Everything that Taylor brought to our attention today was incredible, and he is just making big moves with Local LBK. It was fun to listen.
Yeah, I just love that he's about community in the forefront, just like bringing people together and helping people experience local life and connecting consumers with business owners and business owners with other business owners. Like, it's less about competition and it's more about togetherness. So let's get into it.
So welcome back to our Stay Focused podcast. Today we've got Taylor McAlpine.
Howdy, y'all.
Local LBK. I know you guys all follow Local LBK already, as you should. Man, tell us about that. Tell us about Local LBK.
Like all the way back?
Where
Where are we going?
Let's start with...
How many years have you been in business?
In business 2017. And so that's when we incorporated, actually.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I feel like this is like kind of like a more niche type of business.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us what you do. What is Local LBK?
That is a great question. I'm still figuring that out. So if you can tell me.
We're diagnosing it here. You heard it here first on what Local LBK is and what you do.
We'll figure it out.
Currently, we describe ourselves as a local media company on a mission to help people and brands experience their own backyard and to live like a local. And so we believe we can do that by better supporting local businesses. And from there's a local multiplier effect that keeps dollars in our community and helps you have a better life by getting to know your neighbors, being a regular somewhere, getting good discounts and things like that. So, but it all started off with just an Instagram account. I was going around town taking pictures with my lunches and my lattes, and it was anonymous. And people really liked the content. I would ask questions of, hey, what should this downtown building be? Or, hey, what's your favorite thing to order when you go here? And it was just organic content and people enjoyed it. So 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 followers, it started growing. And so that's when me and a friend decided, hey, we're kind of onto something. Let's help Lubbock know more about what's going on. So we launched a website that had all the events in town. We were pulling information off of Facebook, but they changed all their security policies, so we couldn't pull that data anymore. So we had to pivot from there, and then we launched a rewards program. And so a lot of our OGs will remember having a little plastic card and going around getting discounts whenever they shop with our local partners. That lasted probably 3 to 4 years, and we launched a really cool mobile app in the year 2020. And we were really excited going and encourage people to shop local out in the world, but something kind of big happened in 2020, so we weren't able to do that. So we had to pivot again. And so that year, just because of everything going on, personally, I had a daughter as well. So I was like, hey, I'm going to take a break for a little bit. And in 2021 was accepted into the Texas Tech Accelerator program. And so that was a really helpful program to help me take my business serious again. And we relaunched just as a media company. And so helping people with their video and social content, and then partnering with local brands to tell the story of Lubbock.
Wow.
So that was the short version, but that's what Local LBK is.
All starting from an Instagram account.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you start that account? Were you just like a foodie? What were your motivations in starting the account in the first place?
So a lot of my thought in starting was I wanted to know if I had the guts to be an entrepreneur. I was around a lot of really cool people back in the day. A guy named Justin Bernard. He was the original owner of Sugar Browns, West Crust, Cilantros, if any of y'all remember those businesses. And it was a cool thing. He was a serial entrepreneur, launched really great brands, taking national trends and localizing them. And so that was my first impression of what local business entrepreneurship looked like. And so for me, I was like, hey, there's Lubbock in the Loop. There's Visit Lubbock. I think there's a gap here in the middle of what does Lubbock look like through the lens of local and the everyday pieces of it. And so just started going from there.
Yeah. So what was your goal for that in the beginning? Did you see it becoming what it is today?
Did I have an idea of like what the business plan or the economic model of it would look like? By no means. And so it's rather naive of me to think, oh, how do I start a business? I start an Instagram account. So that's kind of the logic that went into it of, hey, let's launch a brand, see what happens.
Yeah.
What were you doing when you started?
At the time, I was working at West Coast Pizza, actually. So, yeah.
Fun.
So, loved it. It was a great job. Got free food all the time.
Yeah.
Loved it.
So, before all of this, did you always see yourself owning your own business?
Oh, not at all. I always saw myself as someone rather social and maybe a little bit creative, but really just enjoying like the problem-solving elements of what business was. Did y'all ever hear of Future Problem Solvers by any chance? It was part of the Gifted and Talented program through LISD. And so getting into that, it was just a formatted process of taking a scenario, breaking it down into problems, finding the best problem to solve, creating a set of solutions around it, and identifying the best. And so doing that for about 10 years through LISD, we went to state multiple times and just learning that entrepreneurial process of problem identification and solution orientation. So,
wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, loved it. And our favorite part was getting to go to Austin whenever we went to state and getting to go to the museums and have a dance and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So you did that with the students and you like helped them compete?
Oh, I was the student. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So starting in second grade, that was probably a program I was in through my senior year.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like programs like that are usually really helpful. Like we look at stuff like that and it's like, we're having these students go pretend to be entrepreneurs. Yay. But I feel like you learn so much foundational knowledge when you do something like that. When you're young.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For us, it was like real world practical things. And some of the topics we were learning about of space trash, nanotechnology, cybersecurity, those are all things that are like in the mainstream media today. And so imagine if we had come up with the problem or the solution to fix those problems. We could be billionaires at this point. So,
Really?
and those are the industries that are here and that we're facing. So I'd say very relevant.
Wow. That's so fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Miss Nugent was our teacher for that, and she was one of the best. So
I was wondering about what practically does it look like when someone from Lubbock uses Local LBK? What do you do?
Man, great question. So there's a handful of different ways to experience Local LBK. There's our weekly newsletter where we share information about things to try, buy, and do. And so something weekly in your inbox with just a couple of recommendations. And so since we're in January, I don't know how evergreen we're creating this, we've been dropping knowledge of different health-oriented items. And so if that's IVs, if that's diet, if that's exercise, if that's family, if that's mental health, we were sharing resources for that all while keeping it local. And then we do the fun things for shopping and eating too. So weekly newsletter, regular social media content about things going on in town. We just did a series on local Airbnbs if you're looking for a staycation, things like that.
So fun.
And then on our website, we have a whole list of just different locally owned businesses. And so if you're looking for a different category of where you want to spend your money locally, we likely have a listing for you.
Okay, so what was the order of things? So you started your Instagram account, and what was next?
So from social media profiles to event website to the rewards program to now local media.
Okay. What were your biggest barriers when you started moving from Instagram to growing to your website?
At the time, nothing. I had a business partner that knew how to do coding and things. And so he just scraped the internet and pulled it onto our website. And so through knowing the right people, it was pretty easy. It was only the external factor of Facebook changing their policies that removed that information for us. So no really big barrier there. From there, if anything, just want to let more and more people know that it was a resource available to them. And so, but with our social following at the time, that helped with our traffic.
Wow, that's really great.
Yeah.
I'm glad that went so smoothly.
I've got to say, too, coming from a big city and realizing that like no one cares about anything local in big cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about where you're from, if it was the same or not.
Tiny little baby town.
So.
No, everyone only cared about local things.
Only local, but like it's not like, yeah, local. Like the fact that Lubbock is the size it is, yet you still push local. I just think you played into a huge, I don't know, maybe that's just the niche in Lubbock that you were able to go into because it is so local heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, especially when we were about to have you on, I'm like, Midland doesn't say, yeah, local. Like there's really no surrounding cities. And then, of course, then outside of our surrounding cities, like we're by far the biggest one. But then you get into Dallas and Austin, San Antonio, and you don't see like local pages for there. So, man, do you think if you were not in Lubbock, I mean, could you give tips and tricks to someone wanting to start something local in Amarillo or things like that? Or, I mean, really, do you think that you hit the gold mine and because you're in Lubbock, you were able to capitalize on that?
Man, that's a great question. So we've actually experimented with that a little bit of had someone in a small town in New Mexico actually reach out and wanted me to be a coach and help her figure out, hey, how did you deploy this? How did you start this? What do I need to get my career started, my connections to do this in my own town? And then kind of similar thing in Abilene. I had a friend that was really appreciating what Local LBK was doing, and he got to take his and put his own flavor on it. But at the core of it, it's always been about relationships and storytelling. And so luckily, your story matters. And so with that, I think we've always wanted to help bridge the gap of the everyday consumer to the person and operator behind the business of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. It's a unique experience, and it's a hard thing that a lot of everyday consumers probably take for granted. They just expect the service to be good and the prices to be right and it to happen on their timeline. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes. But when you get to humanize the owner and the business, it changes things. It's no longer about how speedy, how quick, how good. It's, hey, this person cares. This is their craft. They spent a decade doing it, whatever those elements are. We're no longer competing on price. We're no longer saying X, Y, Z. It's, hey, it's because I know that person and I want to support them and their vision for their business and for our community. And so when you change the paradigms, you get to play on a different playing field.
Wow. I love
that.
That
Was the question from earlier that I forgot.
Love it.
That came back.
And so,
no, but really, I know, so being from Phoenix, like, I mean, I'm sure there's local lovers in Phoenix, but again, too, being in a big city, if you are a small dog, you probably will not make it. The chains make it in the big cities. And so what is it? Have you done studies? Have you found like a demographic? Have you found, I mean, what is it for Local LBK to be so successful? Who's the generation you target? Who?
Yeah. So for Local LBK, our audience is female millennials. And so 25 to 44 is the broader age range that we're looking at. And so a lot of, I think that's partly strategic, but then also who is also on social, highly social people. And so for us, it's strategic in the fact that those are up and coming professionals. They're leaving college. They're actually starting in their profession. So a lot of habit creating and life changes are happening then. Likely some marriage, likely house buying, things like that. So you have a lot of choices of who do I need to find for my electrician? Who do I need as a plumber? Where do I buy my furniture? Where do I go when I need to have fun? So young professionals, social, and then also some of them are starting families. And so what do those habits start looking like of how do we spend our time as a family? What do we do together? And from different studies, women are often the financial decision makers of the family unit. And so from there, if you can impact the people that are likely controlling the spend, you can influence it in a way that can better impact the community.
I had another study that's funny. One of our previous clients was really, really good at telling us what his stats were and his demographic. And the study for him specifically was that, the females are who decides where to go eat. And so I just think it's just interesting that your category, your area that you're targeting is the same. It's just clearly girls run the world.
Duh. So you agree?
When we were doing our rewards program and we were mostly business supported, individual rather than advertiser, about half of our business owners were female or more.
Wow.
And so for me, like when we celebrated International Women's Day, we had to post go crazy because we got to recognize all the female entrepreneurs that were in our community.
That's so cool.
And so for me, it was actually really interesting of seeing when it came to like the local small business side, so many of the decisions, so many of who were choosing to support were already women.
That is so cool.
And so we're just for me, it wasn't even like supporting an agenda or like having a message. It was, no, this is just the reality
That's
of
just
it.
what it is,
This is what's out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So official local LBK statement: girls run the world.
Quote unquote Michael Scott, quote unquote Beyonce.
Yeah.
Beyonce. We'll give them credit, I guess. I think we said it first, but it's okay.
Yeah, probably.
Love it. Yeah. And then from there, a lot of what I'm doing really isn't all that unique. Nationally, supporting local does have a movement to it. And so there are all sorts of organizations that are doing this in their own towns. Our region really is underrepresented when it comes to a lot of organized or national affiliation for supporting local, but there's stuff going on all over the world and specifically in the United States. So I got to learn from a lot of the people who have already done this and practiced different models for it.
Because you just don't see it. And I remember coming here and being like, why is everyone so crazy about Lubbock? And so it does take a certain person to appreciate that. Do you find that it's like Lubbock born and raised, or do you have people who are like, no, I'm a diehard support local. Like, even though I'm not from here, I know I'm going to go shop with these set of people.
Man, I feel like there's all sorts of different populations that have an interest in supporting local. For some, it's the new to the market, the people who moved here from somewhere else. They're like, hey, how do I learn what Lubbock's about? And then from there, they get to find the dives, the fun spots, the unique things to do because, well, they've already tried all the other chains. They had those. So they want to find out what they can appreciate here. For those who are born and bred here in Lubbock, man, let's support our small town. It's changed so much over the last 10, 20 years. And really just even since it was founded, the growth rate has been ridiculous. But I think we're kind of at a crux of if we don't start better supporting local businesses, we're going to see the future of Lubbock shaped. And so we need to continue supporting our local guys. And then from there, we're a college town. And so that brings in its own unique element. And so we get to have a constant influx of new people moving here. That's tens of thousands of people. And so we're constantly seeing new faces getting to try these places out.
So what does your day-to-day look like?
That is another great question. So I wear two primary hats. One of them is working for an organization called Leading Edge, and we do small business economic development, business coaching in rural communities. And so I get to travel to some of these small towns around Lubbock and help support their local entrepreneurs. And so it's a free service to them, paid for by their EDCs. And so I just get to help them day in and day out and make sure they have the right resources at the right time to do what they do. And then the rest of the week, I get to spend working on Local LBK, working with our advertisers and our content creators.
So it sounds like everything that you do is really rewarding.
Oh, I love it. I've got the best job in the world.
Yeah. What are the most rewarding parts?
Man, on a Leading Edge side, have a client who over some time got to work with her on developing a pitch and some contracts, and she's been able to make a full-time income as a single mom with kids at home. And so for me, that one was probably the most impacting story of like, man, some days it feels a little mundane, but knowing like, hey, I've made a real impact in someone's life here in terms of like their livability, being able to provide for themselves and their family. That one was really big. Others are helping people wrestle through hard financial times or leadership changes or hard conversations with their employees. And then on the Local LBK side, helping people, our audience, learn about something they've never heard of before. My goal with Local LBK is to make everyone feel like we get to be their best friend and we're just having a conversation with them and we're helping them know like, hey, we went to this one place. You should try it out because we really loved XYZ. What did you think of it? And so we get to be the person behind the scenes having those organic conversations of, hey, there's a lot in Lubbock to appreciate and we just want more people to know about it. And so if we can be the platform to hear about it, share tips, that's what kind of our goal.
Yeah. So what does it look like now for you to streamline your business? Do you have a spot on your website where businesses apply to work with you? How does that look when you're trying to connect Lubbock with local businesses?
Yeah. So most of the time people are reaching out on social media. And so sliding into the DMs is literally how it goes. And we're very responsive. And so getting back to people, letting them know, like we had a photographer move to town recently and he was looking for, hey, I need venues and photographers to help with my wedding. I'm like, okay, here's a whole list. Had someone else saying, hey, we're going to be in town for a little bit. Where should we eat? What should we try? And we're not getting paid for any of that, but we want to help share those ideas and resources. Outside of that, brands reach out. And so we love to be able to have a brainstorm and an initial consult of, hey, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? Do you need photo? Do you need video? Do you need graphic designers? Do you need websites? We have referrals for all that, or we can do some of it in-house. And so we send those people to who was the best fit for them. And then from there, if they need advertising, we'd love to put them on our page and help them get the word out.
That's awesome.
And then website, we could have email, have some forums, and people can create listings and publish those on our website as well.
So you're just connecting with people and connecting people all the time. That sounds like so much fun.
Oh, it's great. I see Local LBK as just a giant platform for collaboration. And so that's how I got to know y'all in the first place of all those years ago. And so just continuing to support local business and telling stories and having fun.
Yeah. So what has been the most difficult part?
Man. Depends on the season, depends on the time. Local LBK has always been a side gig for me. I've never really treated it serious enough to say, oh, my life needs to depend on this. And so on one side, that's been a luxury of it's never been make or break for me. But now we're getting to the point of, hey, there's some significant opportunity here. And I'm deliberating with myself of when do I make that full-time switch to better serve my community, better serve my business, to have a little more time and financial freedom. And so that's probably been the biggest deliberation recently of a hard choice. Outside of that, I think because I haven't given it my full-time effort yet, I've underutilized Local LBK to make the impact it could. And so that's been a hard part of, because I've never had to put all the skin in the game. I've never had to depend on it. It probably hasn't grown as it could have, if that makes sense. So
it has grown a lot for you only doing it part-time though. Like that's really impressive.
And it feels silly saying this, but the fact that it's reached the points it has without any advertising dollars either. And so that just shows that the content itself is what people are wanting. And so people appreciate it and it resonates.
Yeah, definitely. So you have been doing this for 7 years now, right?
As a business, yes.
So what do you wish you knew when you started that you know now?
How to sell. Selling is so much more about helping other people find solutions than actually like pushing a product. And so learning how to listen, learning how to craft a proposal, that would have been so helpful years ago. And so over time, luckily, because I've been doing it for years, I've gotten to build my audience, build my network, build connections. And so when it does come to the sell, they know the brand, they see the content, they know me. That's part's usually super easy. But man, earlier on, that would have been super helpful of actually having a crafted narrative of, hey, you're a brand, let's collaborate and partner on something and make both of our goals reached.
Yeah. So what specific type of advice do you think you could give to someone who may want to start something like this?
Something like Local LBK, something like their own social audience?
Both.
If you want to start something like Local LBK, I would highly recommend... oh, come on, Taylor. What's that one called? There's a book called Small Mart Revolution. It's a great read. There's a website, trying to think of it. You can cut this part.
Can you tell me a little bit about that book?
Small Mart Revolution is taking some of the economic principles that apply in local economies. And when you introduce big box stores or corporations like Walmart, what they can do to impact a community. And so when not bashing on Walmart, it's just really interesting seeing the economic factors that come in. When they come into a small town and say your local hardware store or your local craft store or your local retailer, they might have a more difficult time competing on price and service and inventory when it comes to something like that being in their town. And so there's plenty of studies that show the negative effects of when Walmart comes in, what that does. And from there, there's a whole extra level of what it does for property taxes, if there's incentives to attract them there, and then sales tax per square foot. And so this is getting kind of nerdy into it, but when you talk about the footprint of a normal mom and pop shop versus a Walmart, you're actually going to have a higher return when it comes to the city and the tax base on the local square footage rather than a Walmart. And so it's arguable that having more diverse and more interesting small businesses in a certain square footage is actually better for the economy than example of a Walmart. And so granted, you're getting the volume here, but when it comes to actual tax revenue generation, it's better for multiple small businesses. And so that impacts development patterns, traffic, local economy, job creation.
Wow, that is interesting.
And so none of that's original to me. There's plenty of resources out there that talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but Small Mart Revolution is one of those books that helped me become more aware of it.
Okay. What about just starting a business in general?
Man, there are more resources out there than you would imagine if you're starting a small business. The Small Business Development Center is a great resource. They host regular workshops and have private consults that will help you put together a business plan, and you can take those things to financial institutions like banks to help get the lending you need to get started. When your odds of starting and having a successful business are already 50-50 without even doing anything, I would go in and use as many of those free resources as possible. From there, I've never heard of an overfunded business. And so going out and actually raising the appropriate amount of capital needed to get your business started and not put yourself in a risky situation would be the next part. So if that's through private funding, through investors, your own friends and family round, your own funding or a bank, I would make sure you have the dollars you need to get started. Granted, on the opposite side, I know some really scrappy people that have managed to do it on their own, and either through blunt force or creativity or ingenuity, they've been able to figure it out. And so on the other side, just know it's going to take a lot of grit to make it work, no matter the case. And so be willing to put that time and effort into it, or know what your risk tolerance is and make sure it lines up.
Gotta have the grit and the dollar bills.
So those would be some of my recommendations. And then from there, find community, whether that's within your industry, within your geographic region. A lot of the business owners I've got to meet through Local LBK, and I've got to meet hundreds at this point. A lot of them are a whole lot more willing to share their knowledge, their experience, to be a friend than you would expect. And so don't be afraid to ask. And that comes from Local LBK. I'm just sitting out DMs and people are willing to respond. So I can imagine like, hey, I'm starting something. Would you be willing to help me?
I think that's huge because like another need for this podcast was for business owners to find community with each other.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, when you're running a business, you know, we had Sean Pena saying like, obviously I want to be the best, right? He wants to be the best, but he also wants to see his competitors, he said, eat dinner. He wants to make sure they're doing good too. But I think that's been the stigma for so long, is that no, there's only one marketing agency in Lubbock and it better be creative and you can't use anyone else. And like, because that's what we've needed to survive and keep going, right? We can't look at what everyone else is doing. We've got to focus on ourselves. And is it irritating that there's more? Sure, but why? Why has that been my mindset? And come to find out, like I have a really sweet friend who has her own marketing agency. And she's a doll and she's a gem. And I know I could go to her for all things. And so I've been able to find that community and break that stigma of, I think, what was taught to business owners 20 years ago. And like, no, we're all surviving.
Like there's enough to go around.
We're all surviving. There's enough to go around. It's okay. Yeah. So it was just, that made me think of that with what you just said. Is just
completely
finding community with each other, because it's so lonely. And like the friends you have, right, who we surround ourselves with influences us so much. And usually business owners, for the most part, we don't have those entrepreneurial friends. And if we do, well, we don't see them ever because we're all just so busy. So that is neat too. And I know there's a few networking clubs. That's not what it's called.
Referral groups, networking.
Not networking clubs. But they have those. But I'm like, it's just sometimes not enough. So it's good to see you saying, hey, here's this business owner. They're really nice. Let me showcase them. And just like what we're trying to do, break them down to show people who they actually are. So you don't get to see that. So that's just neat. I appreciate that you do that. And you should start a referral group.
Noted.
And I really love this conversation because I feel like most of the time when you hear people trying to get ahead in business, they're like, you have to do whatever it takes. You have to step on everyone and like really like
bash leave them 1-star reviews. I've never done that.
Do we need to talk about something?
I've really never done that.
But I like the mindset that like you can make it without hurting people, and you can make it while partnering with people.
Yeah, that has never been the mindset though. That has never been like, I don't know. I think it's good. The other thing that has come up lately that I've been watching is the whole move in silence and don't tell anyone what you're doing until it happens. And I'm like, but why? Why is that now a stigma? You know, not only do business owners like feel like we can't share our secrets and not share why we got to where we're at, and so it doesn't look like, oh yeah, here we are, here's creative 15 years later and we've never struggled. That's not it, even a little bit.
And that's not what consumers want anymore. Everyone wants the authenticity and to see you and to see the hard things. And like, it's not that it's really easy to just be a business owner and you don't have to like, it's not that you don't have to make sacrifices, but it's just that you don't have to be brutal to everyone around you. And I think that's a big thing that Local LBK does, like just connecting people and having people help people. And it's helping our community thrive. Like, I send people your Instagram account all the time that are just like looking for stuff to do in Lubbock, like new people in Lubbock, and it's just really helpful for the community to be built.
People were made for community. And so I appreciate you bridging that gap. That's biblical. We were made for community. We were made to not do life alone. And so I think it goes so much deeper, right?
Oh, for sure.
That's a ministry for you. That's something that is so neat for me to witness. And yeah, you're just helping so many people. It's so cool. I love seeing it.
It's been a lot of fun. And so God's leading in crazy ways and just trying to make sure I take the right next step.
Yeah.
Do you have any like stories that you can look back on? Like, what is the thing that has made you the most excited? Like, was there a moment that you got to work with like this certain business that you really love, or just like really exciting moments for you?
Man, a lot of them have been happening like within the last year or 6 months. And so this will feel very focused on what's happened recently because there's plenty of stories from old times. Recently, we had our most successful piece of content hit around 75,000 viewers recently. And that was an organic post just getting shared out the wazoo. So that was super cool to see. Aaron Watson started following Local LBK, so well-known performer. I'm like, hey, that's got a blue check mark. That's a real person. So if you're listening, hey. And so
I think I went to, he's a country singer, right? I think I went to camp with his kids.
No way.
Yeah. Really weird connection. Anyway.
And so that was a really cool thing. And then recently we have a contract with United. And so that's been a game changer for us.
That's
and so
cool.
Be able to execute our vision for what content should look like and be able to support them while we do it.
That's so
There's some
cool.
good stuff
I didn't
coming.
think that I would have a good time watching videos of walking through a grocery store, but it's a good time.
Oh, my feed is totally different now from the algorithm of just
That's
finding
so
things to do
funny.
research. And there's some cool grocery store content out there.
What about the hardest part of your journey?
Hardest part of the journey. Hardest part of Local LBK has probably been not even necessarily about Local LBK, but just defining what boundaries should look like as a business owner.
Yeah.
Especially when it wasn't providing full time of what sacrifices do I choose to make with it or not.
Yeah.
And luckily I've been in a place of privilege of not needing to give up nights and weekends, working crazy hours and maintain my family time. But knowing that I knew I was always choosing that to the possible detriment or lack of growth with Local LBK. And so that's been a hard thing over the years of just choosing like, hey, I know my value matrix and I know what I'm prioritizing, but also know that means that's holding other things back. And so that's probably been one of the hard
just
parts.
where you're at right now too. And so I commend you for that, because what it looks like right now might not be what it looks like in 20 years from now.
Oh, for sure.
What practices have you found that you do specifically to help you prioritize?
Good question. I have a coach and he's been instrumental in helping with that, in writing something called a life plan. And so just having those metrics of what I want to prioritize in terms of life accounts. So that's been really helpful, having a personal mission statement. Every 6 months, I revisit all of that and reorganize and reprioritize as needed. And then from there, using friends and family to make sure I'm not delusional and saying, hey, can you help me check base? Am I reaching the things that I need to be doing for myself and my goals? But then simultaneously, I'm inviting them to speak. How am I prioritizing you in our relationship? And so if I am askew in prioritizing something over you, help me get back to where I need to be. So
Yeah.
that's been really helpful.
I love that mindset of like, I'm going to do my best to keep myself in check, but I'm not going to only trust myself. Like using your community. Yeah, I love that.
Ooh, who has made the biggest influence on you in relation to Local LBK?
Was already mentioned him earlier, Jess Menard. He's probably shaped my careers and my philosophy on life as a business owner, and what I think local means. He introduced me to all of it. And so knowing where faith, family, business all intersect, it was definitely him.
That's awesome.
What do you think is the biggest thing you've learned from him?
As a single lesson, I don't know if I could pinpoint it. When I worked for him for about 4 years, it was just the day in and day out of being a true example. And for him, he wasn't doing it to be a mentor or a leader. It was just Justin being JB. He was a fun-loving guy. He would cut it up. We'd laugh around and have me join him on errands and things like that. And the fact that he would simultaneously like have the Christmas parties at his house, it just showed like how he chose to do life and wanted to bring people into his home. And so for him, it wasn't just, oh, I'm running a business. It's, oh no, y'all are people and I recognize you and I value you. And I was lucky enough to be able to be a little bit more on the inside and see what that looked like too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I just remembered that I forgot to ask you my most important question, my most anticipated question.
Let's go.
What's your best joke?
It's maybe not my best joke, but what is red and white, or what is black and white and red all over?
A newspaper.
There you go. Come on. It was supposed to be harder than that.
Yeah. You know what? That used to be more graphic than that because it was innocent as a newspaper. And then I think like in 3rd grade, maybe, it switched to a dead penguin.
Ooh.
That's just sad. I mean, the newspaper one is clever at least. What's your best joke?
You really think I have a joke?
Well, it's got to be better than mine.
What's that supposed to mean?
No. What's the interrupting cow one? I don't know.
Wait, tell me it.
I don't even know.
There you go.
I don't joke. She's really bad at joking, but she loves to laugh at jokes. So,
Mm.
don't ask me to tell you one though. Unless I'm like bashing you for fun,
Mm-hmm.
not many funny things are like coming out of my mouth.
Okay, you didn't
I'm
just
a
roast us.
very serious
What's your favorite
person.
joke?
So we need to get you in stand-up comedy, it sounds like.
I think I would thrive in that area, but I don't like being hated, and I don't like having to tell people like I'm just joking.
Mm.
So like with them, you know, I don't have to say it anymore. But when they were first new, I felt like I had to say I'm just kidding so much.
It's
I
just
don't like
me.
having to follow. Yeah, like it sounds terrible what I'm saying, but I'm just kidding.
Put no weight behind it. Don't worry.
I said it for a reason.
I actually really don't like you.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
But really.
You were accidentally hired. Just kidding.
I hope that makes the trailer.
I actually didn't hire you.
You didn't want me, did you?
I did.
You were in my interview,
But I didn't hire you.
and then you were having a baby.
Yep.
Which is wild.
So let's talk about who you have working for you.
Yeah.
And how that's been. Because, I mean, you started out as a solo guy. You've had people in and out for a few years. But who helps you run Local LBK now?
Yeah. So the way I always put it is I'm Taylor. I'm the guy behind Local LBK, and I do it with a great team of content creators. My main guy is Ian. He's my video photo guy, and he's been killing it for probably about a year and a half.
That's
and then recently brought on someone named Susie, and she's our media manager. So she handles all the things behind the scenes, caption writing, scheduling, newsletter. And she's actually the one behind that, not viral, but well-performing post
really?
recently. And
Which one was it?
The Hub City Silos.
Oh,
And so-
did it blow up?
Mm-hmm.
So that was recent blow up. Are those really cool?
Yeah.
They look interesting to me.
I was about to say that post alone has gotten us 800 new followers.
Wow.
So-
Wow. Okay, I know which one you're talking about now. I was trying to figure out what it was.
I DM'd that to Jared and said, we need to take our company there and do a retreat.
That would
but,
be so
like,
cool.
How do we pretend we're not in Lubbock? Right? Like a company retreat, you kind of like want to head out of town.
Mm-hmm.
But like the silos were really cool.
But like, it's fun to not have to drive for 6 hours.
Yeah.
I like that more than going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big travel girl.
81.6. That's really cool.
And that's going to keep going.
Yeah, because
That's
she
amazing.
just posted that.
Yeah. Wow.
Good job, Susie. You did it.
I'm impressed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
And
is
so
awesome.
outside of that, we've had different content creators over
Here
the
and
years
there,
and
yeah.
still keep a lot of them around just to help with special projects. So.
Yeah. Cool.
This might be an easier way to answer the funny story thing. Have you ever had any big mishaps?
Ooh.
So funny for us. Definitely not funny for you.
Mhm.
I mean, funny looking back.
Yeah. There was, okay, does it have to be local LBK or just I have a personal one that was like a big FUBU?
Why not?
Let's do it.
Okay. Names will be redacted. But I was working for an agency in town and we were helping with a political campaign and I was helping manage this person's Twitter
I don't like
account.
where this is
I'm
going.
already
I told you it was a
sweating.
FUBU.
Oh, no.
And I Googled this district that they were running for, and apparently the map was a year old, and there was a new one. And I sent it out as, hey, ready for you to vote for me for this jurisdiction. And his opponents love the fact that I sent out the wrong map.
I mean, I don't think
So-
that's that bad. It could have been worse.
For a political campaign, it
Like the
was
type of attention that you get if you get something wrong in politics.
like, hey, I don't even know what my jurisdiction is.
Ugh.
Oh, man, I have a
Yeah,
story
it
to
didn't
tell
do
you after
well.
that.
It didn't do well. Came forward, told the owner, deleted
Aw.
as quickly as it could.
Yeah.
But that one hurt. That one hurt.
That's
So college intern Taylor learned a lesson.
it happens.
What will you never compromise on? I think you've kind of answered that a little
Mhm.
bit, you know, your boundaries with family and things.
Yeah.
But is there a business here in Lubbock or elsewhere that's coming into Lubbock or a chain like that you're just like, I would never promote you? Please name drop.
I mean, outside of
definitely not
maybe some
Walmart. Walmart's already
industries
out.
or explicit material,
Yeah.
Local LBK is a family-friendly brand.
Yeah.
Nothing against some industries or some legal status of different things throughout history right now. As things change, we'll see.
Yeah.
So we use something called the Live Like a Local framework. And for us, that is measuring degrees of impact for your community.
Yeah.
The idea that at the inner circle, you can start things, do things, learn things yourself. And that's going to benefit you and your closest people the most. From there, doing things with friends, local businesses, franchise, online business, as it scales out, it's going to be degrees and degrees of less impact. And so as long as we can work with brands or people that are as close as their industry or sector allow for that framework, that's how we make a lot of our decisions. And so
What if Jared and I brought In-N-Out to Lubbock?
what's
that-
the question?
Would you promote us?
Yeah, we'd be happy. Or are y'all
Even though it's
owning
a
it?
franchise?
Oh yeah, locally
You would do that.
owned franchise.
Locally
Um,
owned franchise. That clarifies a lot of things.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does.
And that's
So, like,
also not bashing
whoever
on corporate
opened-
locations.
Yeah,
It's just
no.
saying, hey,
Because you know what? Corporate locations also started out as some little fish for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they didn't.
and they're
but
still generating sales tax. They're still likely giving to things in the
Mhm.
community, still employing local people. So
they just made it big time.
They
Like
stepped on
McDonald's.
everyone.
Man, some of those stories are really, really hard. But I was just, curious about
Mhm.
that. If you would. So as long as it's locally owned.
yeah, so
Franchise, you would.
so those aren't direct requirements, but we like to find the
Yeah.
people that are the closest to that middle sector as
Yeah.
possible.
People that go home and cry every day because they own a business. Yeah, great.
If you can relate to
Yeah.
that, we can probably work together.
Yeah.
Okay. Now is time for you to look at that camera over there and tell everyone how to find you.
I'm right here. My name's Taylor McAlpine with Local LBK. You can find us on our website at locallbk.com or Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of your favorite social media platforms. And so we'd love to help you live like a local and experience everything going on in your own backyard.
For today only, you can find him right here at Creative.
I'm right
That's
here.
true.
He's here.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Telling us your story and giving us all your knowledge. This has been a good one.
Let's do it again.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Stay Focused podcast. You can find us on YouTube or anywhere where you listen to podcasts. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at stayfocused.creative. And remember that your story matters, so stay focused.